Okay, one thing I'm gonna say is that the world is terrifying nowadays. Like, I'm gonna be honest, I feel like every girl I walk up to nowadays, I'm gonna have to ask for ID, because at this point, a 12-year-old can look like she's 20, and a 20-year-old can look like she's 50. Like, it just makes no sense to me. No one actually ends up looking their age in this time and age, and it actually scares the life out of me. And this is one of those crazy stories. But before I do get into this story, I just want to say a quick announcement that I am currently live streaming on YouTube. Literally, I am going live on YouTube on Bubba Gaming. So make sure you guys go subscribe to the page. Link is down in the description down below. And also on top of that, I am also live on Twitch on Bubba Streams, the usual channel that I usually go live on. So if you guys do want to watch me playing video games live and also telling crazy stories like this one, well, my best advice would be subscribe to those channels. Other than that, let's get straight into this crazy story. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another insane story. So this story takes place, funny enough, right after my grad year. This was when I was turning 19 years old, and honestly, I was still the same kid somewhat from high school. I realized that after I graduated, not much has changed about me. For example, I still enjoy doing the Devil's Tango, and I still play Call of Duty and video games all the time. Actually, speaking of Call of Duty, anyone else playing the new Modern Warfare 2? Going on though, I remember randomly one time when I was 19, I basically went up to a friend's house and basically started hanging out with him more. Because, you know, usually after high school, you start to lose a lot of friends, and it kind of just sucks. But at the same time, were they really your friends? Anyways, going on, I remember went to his house, and basically he came at the front door saying, yo bro, we're gonna quickly go back to your place, you gotta get changed, you're gonna be looking good for tonight. I end up telling him and looking at him saying, why would I have to look good for tonight? I thought we're just chilling at your place playing video games. And then he said, nah dude, like trust me bro, we're 19, we're gonna go to a club and we're gonna meet some chicks, bro. I ended up looking at him and kind of tilting my head saying, we're going to a club tonight? Like, what's the point? Because I'm not gonna lie, the club wasn't really considered cool anymore for me. I don't know, it just seemed kind of boring, just sitting, listening to music and seeing a bunch of chicks dance while you sit in the back and just wait till one wants you and then comes up to you and ends up doing the Devil's Tango with you. But then he said, nah bro, like trust me, the club we're going to, you're gonna love it bro, trust me man. And then I remember we ended up going back to my house, and I got dressed and basically started asking him questions like, so why is this club so different? Why are we going to this club? Is it really worth it going to this club? I kept asking him back to back, and then he said, bro, trust me man, this club is gonna get you going crazy because there's a lot of good older women that know what they're doing, you know what I'm saying? What is what I told him. But then he said, dude, we're 19 now man, you know, we got to get out of the high school stage and just go talk to some older women. In my opinion, it was kind of gross and kind of weird because, you know, they're older women, I guess. I don't know, I usually don't go for anything above like 2 years older for me, but I don't know, he had a point, meaning that I had to get out of the high school stage, so I kind of just went along with it. I remember me and him, we ended up getting into his car, and from his car we ended up driving to the club. It was around like 7:30 at night, so it was kind of early to go to the club. So when we got there, I remember I told him, bro, like can we come back like in like maybe 2 hours? Like it's really early, bro. And then he said, you know what, yeah you're right, you know what, let's quickly go to like chill at like the mall near here. So me and him, we ended up going to the mall. When we ended up going to the mall, we were kind of like overdressed for the mall somewhat. Like I don't know, I was wearing a pretty nice high-end outfit that I usually wouldn't wear at the mall, because I'm gonna be honest, if I get to wear sweatpants, I'm gonna wear sweatpants. But then I remember basically me and him, we started walking around the mall, and when we did, I remember he was just explaining to me how he had an experience with an older woman. He said, dude, like I remember bro, I went to this club one time, Bubba, and trust me man, like I went with this girl, dude, like she was like 6 years older than me, but she knew what she was doing. I looked at her, I'm like, what do you mean 6 years older? He's like, dude, we're 19, right? So like this chick, I think she was like only like 27, 28. What is what I told him? I'm like, dude, that's like a full-on mother. I don't know, usually like I find it really odd when someone's like in their late 20s dating like a super young guy, like in the like early like you know, teenagers, I guess I should say. So I was weirded out, but then he kept telling me how it was like one of the greatest experiences of his life. So I just went along with it and said sure. And me being 19, honestly, like it never hurt to experience doing the Devil's Tango with like someone older in a way. So going on, I remember time passed by, we ate some food, and we ended up going back to the club. It was around 9:30 p.m. and when we got to the club, I remember we stood at the lineup, we went to the bouncer, and the bouncer had to check our IDs. The bouncer looks at our IDs saying, oh, you guys are really young, eh? Like you guys just turned old enough to go to the club, huh? And we ended up looking at him and we're like, yeah, like, you know, we're trying out new places. He looks at us and he ends up laughing. He's like, sure, new places, okay. And he gives back our IDs and lets us walk in. When we walked in, I realized that there were no young people. And by young people, I mean like people similar to my age at the time. So like reminder, I'm 21 right now, so this was like almost 2 years ago. But anyways, I remember I was looking around and I'm like, dude, like there's a lot of like moms here, because like you can tell when someone was a mom, you know, like it just makes sense. But I remember when we walked in, we started like seeing a lot of like crazy people and stuff, and a lot of moms were smoking, smoking, drinking margaritas. Same old, same old. By the way, don't drink or smoke. It is not good for you. Anyways, going on, I remember I just walked around with my friend around the club and stuff, and when it became more towards night, and by night, I mean like 12, almost 11:30 at night, my friend told me, bro, let's go to the dance floor. Trust me, bro. Let's go meet some ladies. You know what I'm saying? It's our time now. I ended up saying, whatever. And me and him, we ended up basically going to the dance floor, and when we did, we started just kind of like, you know, swaying side to side, looking around, seeing what was going on. And then out of nowhere, these two old ladies came up to us, but at the same time, they didn't really look old. For some reason, one of the ladies looked basically like 22, and I was like, oh, you know, maybe 1-year-old would never hurt. So I started dancing with her, and my friend ended up going for the really old lady that was probably around her 30s or probably even 40s. I remember I basically looked at him and kind of just started laughing, but at the same time, kind of disgusted. But me knowing that I had a girl that was like basically 22, like I thought it was maybe her daughter or something. So I started dancing with the younger one, and me and her, we started like chilling and stuff, and basically like, you know, just talking about life. But I'm gonna be honest, since I drank so much in the past 2 hours before I actually ended up meeting these two women, I was kind of wasted. Reminder once again, don't drink. Going on though, out of nowhere, I remember this girl was like, hey, so like, do you want to like maybe like come back to my place? Like, I have no one over right now. And I looked at her and I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, I'm down, because me in my mind thinking that she was 22, you know, like might as well, like maybe she has her own place and everything, more accomplished than I am. So I basically told her to wait up, and I started looking around for my friend to see where he was so I could tell him that I was going home with this chick. But at the same time, I could not find him whatsoever. Everywhere I looked, I could not find my buddy. Like, I had no idea where he was. Apparently I texted him and he said, dude, I'm in her car right now hooking up with her. Like, just go do your own thing, man. I'm doing the devil's tango with her anytime soon, so just don't bug me. Okay. I guess my friend was doing the devil's tango with like a 35-year-old chick. Good for him, I guess. So I ended up walking up to the other chick that originally wanted to hang out with me, and I ended up going home with her. I remember I ended up going inside this taxi we took, and we went back home to her place. And when I went to her place, I realized that this house looked really familiar. I kept looking around and stuff, and I'm like, I swear I've been here before, because I got major deja vu. But then I remember out of nowhere, when I ended up going inside her bedroom, I was like, have I really been here before? Then I realized something. I have been in the house before. I recognized some photos on the wall, but I couldn't put my finger on it. So I kind of just let it go and said, whatever. Me and her, we ended up basically going to the bedroom, and me and her, we ended up doing the devil's tango for like a good like hour or so. But then out of nowhere, I remember I had to go to the bathroom. So I went out of the room to go to the bathroom in the hallway. And it was weird because I knew exactly where the bathroom was, but I wasn't sure how. And then I remember when I went to the bathroom, I saw the door was locked. So I knocked on the door thinking no one was in there. But then after that, 5 seconds later, the door opens, and it was literally a chick that I went to high school with. But it was no ordinary chick. This was a chick that I actually have done the devil's tango before. I remember she opens the door and she's like, Papa, what are you doing here? And I'm like, hey, wait, what are you doing here? And she's like, I live here. Don't you remember we did it before here? And I remember I looked at her and I'm like, oh my goodness, everything makes sense now. And right as I was figuring out everything, basically the girl that I ended up doing the devil's tango with comes out of the room in like her robe, and she sees that I'm talking to this girl, and she's like, oh, like, go back to sleep. You don't need to see this. And after that, the girl that went to my high school looks at me and says, OMG, Bubba, did you just do the devil's tango with my grandmother? I looked at her and I looked at her grandmother. I'm like, that's your grandmother? She doesn't look a day past 22. She ended up taking that as a compliment, and basically I ended up getting slapped across the face by the girl I ended up going to high school with. And yeah, I guess I ended up doing 2 people in her family bloodline. Now, I really question why I tell these stories, but then I always get reminded about how much you guys enjoy the embarrassing stories of my life that are super sus, but at the same time are really relatable, because, well, let's be real here, these all happen to like other people as well. It's not just me. It just happens to me the most because, well, I guess I'm just risky like that in my life. But today's story is about something that is super embarrassing, and honestly, it's about getting walked in on. But walked in by who? Well, it says in the title who it is, and honestly, I'm just gonna say it's super embarrassing. So honestly, leave a like and subscribe. And I'm just gonna say this, if this video hits over 4,000 likes, since you guys crushed the last like goal of me shaving my beard, if this video gets 4,000 likes, I will tell a story time in my hot tub. Yeah, meaning I'm gonna be sitting in my hot tub and telling you guys an insane story about my life, which is really embarrassing, but at the same time, I think it's doable. So if this video gets 4,000 likes, I will tell a story time in my hot tub. But other than that, let's just jump into today's story. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and today I'm gonna be telling you guys the most embarrassing story I think I've actually gone through. Probably not the most embarrassing out of everything I've said on this channel, but definitely embarrassing. And this story starts off all back when I was in grade 9. Now in grade 9, that's when hormones of mine were really active. It's when I realized that I was a hypersexual, and when I realized realized that I was, well, beating the eggplant, meaning that I just could not stop. I think it's gone to the point where, like, at that age, I would do it like almost 6 times a day, which is not good because obviously I want my testosterone levels to be high. But at the same time, I mean, hey, man, it's just hitting puberty, okay? Like, I was a machine back then and still am a machine to this day, which is not something I should say and could get demonetized. Can we cut that out? Anyways, going on though, I remember basically back when I was in high school, one time when I was sitting in my room, my dad walked into my room, and no, I wasn't beating my meat at this time. I was actually sitting down playing Call of Duty. When I was sitting down playing Call of Duty, my dad ended up walking up to me saying, "Bubba, we're gonna be going to visit your grandma." And I remember at that moment, I was super excited. Now, if you guys don't know why I was super excited, is because I'm in Vancouver, Canada. My grandmother, she lives all the way in the United States of America. So when we get to go see grandma, in reality, it's, hey, we're going on a vacation to the United States of America, which is awesome. I love the US of A. It's actually really cool. So me being super excited, I remember that moment, I ended up packing up my bags, and the next morning, we basically ended up driving all the way to the United States of America and basically went past the border and drove all the way to Seattle where my grandma was located. Anyways, when we got to my grandma's house, I remember we ended up going in there. We started unpacking everything, and I was relaxing. And I remember one reason why I was super excited was because my grandma actually owned an Xbox 360. So in reality, when I went to go visit my grandma, it wasn't like I was, leaving gaming. It was like I could game at my grandma's house, and she even got the Xbox 360 just for me to play on. So me being super excited and super happy, I remember I brought my Call of Duty Black Ops 2 disc, and I was basically just at my grandma's house playing Call of Duty in the US of A. For you guys, it's probably normal since a lot of you guys are probably in the United States. Actually, what country are you guys from? Comment it down below. I'm actually curious, but I remember basically I was playing games and playing Call of Duty, and I remember I ended up playing for hours on end. Yes, I would enjoy time with my grandma as well, obviously, but at the same time, my grandma would sometimes like to play video games with me, and to this day, I'm not gonna lie to you, my grandma means the world to me. So as you guys can tell, like, as me explaining all this, my grandma was a really important person in my life, a very important person, which I would hate if she saw anything bad of me come to life, which happens in this story. Anyways, going on though, I remember one time though, it was getting super late, and my parents wanted to go out and have a good time, going out with my aunts and my uncles, and basically go out and have a good time. And they usually like to do that really late. Maybe they either go to a casino or go to a club or something. But me, I wasn't allowed because obviously I was super young and I was only in grade 9. So what ended up happening was my grandma would actually end up taking care of me and basically watch over me as my family go out and have a good vacation. But me, obviously, I wasn't hard to take care of. If anything, put me in front of a TV, I'm chilling. But I remember it got super late into the night. I want to say like 1:30 a.m. where I ended up basically having to go to bed. So I remember I ended up going to bed and basically laying down in the bedroom that my grandma had set up for me. As I was in there, I remember I was laying down and I was just kind of like not being able to sleep. Like, you guys know that feeling where you lay down but you just can't sleep. And for me, I'm one of those weird people that need to watch YouTube videos or watch a movie or something just so I can go to bed. If you guys are those type of people, you guys understand what I mean. But me, I couldn't sleep, and I remember it got to the point where I was basically just laying down with my eyes wide open, not knowing what to do. So in another way, I found out another way that I could sleep, which was, beating my meat. Beating my meat. I'm just gonna say that right now. I would have to beat my meat for me to get more tired. So me, instead of doing the bad thing, which would be doing it right on my grandmother's guest bed, I decided to basically go to the bathroom, and I sat down in there and I opened up my phone, and yeah, I ended up, watching the Devil's Hub. That was on my phone when I was, beating it at my grandma's place. So I'm in my grandma's bathroom, beating my meat, going crazy, doing the typical thing that most guys would do, and maybe girls. I don't know if you girls would do this, but at the same time, us guys are really active compared to women nowadays. But going on, I remember I was beating it, and then one thing led to another. I ended up hearing footsteps around the bathroom. Now at this point, I got super nervous, and I'm like, oh snap, like I think my grandma's outside or something. So I remember I ended up basically like kind of like holding still and just like, just waiting for like this footsteps to go away. But at the same time, I was like actually like really close to like finishing and basically wanting to just finish the entire thing and just, call it a day and just go straight to my bed. So I remember I ended up just basically trying to do a speed run. Like, I ain't no small ant or anything, but I basically tried speed running my meat, and one thing led to another. I guess my grandma like heard like something going on in the bathroom. So what my grandma decides to do is just walk into the bathroom and see what's going on. And one thing I will say as well is that my grandma's bathroom did not have a good lock, because for emergency reasons, they didn't want to have a lock on her door in case anything happened to her in the bathroom. So me, as I'm like absolutely terrified, beating it, going crazy, that any moment now my grandma could just walk in on me. Right as like the video is about to end, I ended up busting the devil's cream. And right as I'm like in the middle of, you know, the entire thing that happened, my grandma walks in with her eyes wide open saying, Bubba, what are you doing? Honestly, I didn't know what to say, and I was just really embarrassed just sitting there going, okay, grandma, listen, I'm becoming a man now. Like, I didn't know what to say. But then I remember my grandma ended up closing the door right away, and she just said, like, you know, finish up, we'll talk about this after. I ended up going, you know, out of there. We ended up sitting down on the bed that I was supposed to be sleeping on, and she basically explained to me how, you know, I'm becoming a man and stuff, and that, you know, you need to control myself, you want your testosterone levels high, and blah blah blah, all this stuff about how, you know, watching the devil's hub is like unhealthy and stuff, you know, basically the basic talk that you get in school and also from your parents. And yeah, when my parents got home, luckily my grandma and I did make a promise that we would never tell anybody about this story. But at the same time, this was back when I was in grade 9. And, you know, the fact that she kept that promise to this day really warms my heart. But at the same time, on this YouTube channel, only the truth comes out. I remember I was beating my meat to this video game, and then out of nowhere, my grandma walks in saying, Bubba, what did I just buy you? And I knew it was the biggest mistake ever. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to another really embarrassing story. So this story all takes place back in my grade 9 year. Now, in grade 9, I was only 14 years old, and being a 14-year-old isn't easy. I will say this much: in grade 9, I was hitting puberty, and I was getting a lot of different hormones to the point where, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, it was like I had my own hormone monster that made me keep falling for the temptations of life. You guys may know this because it's very common throughout, you know, growing up and hitting puberty, especially throughout middle school. But for me, it all happened in grade 9. I remember though, back when I was in grade 9, there was a game that was very commonly played and everyone played it. You guys probably know the game. It's called Grand Theft Auto 5. Now, me, back when I was in grade 9, I wasn't allowed to get Grand Theft Auto 5 because my parents knew that it was not a game for, well, good kids to play. In a way, I guess you guys could say I had strict parents that did not want me playing games that was really not appropriate. Like, even for my parents to just buy me Call of Duty, it took so much convincing to make them understand that I wasn't gonna go out and start actually killing people IRL. Like, it was a lot of convincing I had to do just to get a basic video game that was rated M. But I remember one time I was in school hanging out with all my friends, and I remember one of my friends kept bringing up how Grand Theft Auto has these cool bank heists where you could literally go and rob banks. Now, I found this super cool, but obviously, like, I wasn't able to play because I didn't have the game. So obviously it sucked, and I remember every day they would keep talking about this game. Now, me, I only got to know stuff about Grand Theft Auto through YouTube videos that I would secretly have to watch by myself. So I would join into the conversation, but I would only be able to talk about what I knew from watching other players play it, like Vanoss and all of them. Obviously, it was really upsetting, but I remember one time specifically, I was walking home from school with my buddy of mine, and he told me, yo, Bubba, I don't understand, bro. Like, why don't you just, like, tell your parents it's not a bad game? Dude, there's literally girls on the cover of the game. They're obviously not gonna believe me. Okay, well, then just get someone else to buy it for you. That's what I did, and my parents never found out. Now, this moment, when I heard about his idea, it was actually not a bad one. Like, why didn't I just get someone else to buy me the game? So I remember the next day, during the school day, I remember I walked up to one of my homies and said, yo, bro, you know what? I'm gonna buy the game today. I actually have a great idea. Wait, what do you mean? Did your parents finally let you get it? No, obviously not, but my plan is that I'm gonna go to GameStop and just hand someone my money to buy me the game. I remember he looks at me and shrugs, and he's like, okay, if you say so, man. If it works, tell me. And he ended up leaving. Now, obviously, that whole day, I was excited just to go to the mall and just pick up this game. To be honest, it was like, you know, exciting for me knowing that I could actually have a copy of this game. But once I got to the mall and I actually, you know, waited by GameStop, I remember I saw this old guy. He had like a white beard and everything, so obviously he was old enough to buy me the game. So I walked up to him in the food court and said, hey, yo, bro, I was wondering, could you buy me this game? For some reason, I'm not old enough to get it, but it's a good game and my parents are just not here to pick it up for me. Is it cool if you just say you're my parent and get me the game? I remember he looks at me and he just, like, you know, ends up saying, sure, why not? And he ends up standing up and going towards GameStop with the money I handed him, and he went to go pick up the game. But for some reason, GameStop has this rule where you have to be like 17 plus to buy 17 plus mature games. So I remember right as he picks up the game, he ends up looking at the physical copy of it and like the cover and everything, and he looks at me, and then afterwards he walks towards the counter. And right when he walks towards the counter, like, this guy just kept staring at me, and then that's when the cashier noticed that this person was buying the game for me, and the cashier ended up telling the old man that was supposed to buy me the game, sir, you do realize this game has a lot of, you know, violence and a lot of graphic content. You do realize this game's not for kids, right? And at that moment, when he heard this cashier say that, instantly at that moment, he starts worrying and starts like basically like confessing his sins, saying like, oh, like, I was gonna buy the game for this kid. I didn't know it was a bad game. I hope I don't get in trouble. And well, one thing thing led to another. Mall security came and I got in trouble. I got in serious trouble to the point where they actually ended up calling my parents that I was trying to buy a game that was not for my age. Yeah, my parents found out about it and I got in serious trouble. I remember for that weekend, I wasn't allowed my Xbox nor to play my Xbox whatsoever. But then something insane happened where I remember the next day when I went to school, I ended up telling my friends like what happened and stuff. And obviously they all ended up laughing at me because, well, they all had the game that I couldn't have. And it got super annoying. But then out of nowhere throughout the school day, I ended up getting a text message from my mom. My mom ended up texting me, "Oh, Bubba, your grandma's gonna be coming to visit from the States. So she's gonna be staying with you guys for a bit while I go visit your auntie." And at that moment, I got really, really excited because if there's one person in this world that would buy me anything without questioning it, it was my grandmother. Why? Well, for one of two reasons. One, she did not speak English properly. So if the cashier did tell her, you know, this had graphic content stuff, she would just think graphic means really cute photos. And on top of that, if she saw I wanted it bad enough, she would buy it even herself. Obviously, this is not a smart thing to do. And for anyone watching this video, even if my grandma's watching, no one should be taking advantage of other people, especially if they don't know English. Please just be smart with your decisions. Don't do what I do. But going on with the story, I remember when I got home that day, I was super excited and I ran up to my grandmother and I told her everything about this game, Grand Theft Auto. I ended up telling her how it was a racing game and how it was like, you know, basically a game where you're supposed to make money and buy nice cars. Obviously, I didn't tell her the rest of it about how, you know, you end up killing people in the game. And on top of that, you basically see women partially wearing nothing, but she didn't need to know that. So I remember that day when I told my grandma about it, she instantly just looked at me and said, "Okay, I'll buy you the game." And at that moment, I got super excited. I remember me and my grandma, we ended up getting into her car and we drove down to the mall. And when we got to the mall, I remember we went to the GameStop that had the game and instantly I picked it up, I gave it to her, and me and her, we went to the front counter. Now the cashier did recognize me from before, but I did tell him that this was my grandmother and that, you know, my grandma's totally cool with me getting the game. So instantly at that moment, the cashier ends up saying the same thing that he told the old man from the other day. And well, my grandmother didn't understand a word he said. So she ends up looking at me saying, "Bubba, what is he saying?" "Oh, grandma, he's just saying how, you know, the game's a good game for kids and how, you know, it'll teach me a lot about driving." Obviously, when me and my grandma communicated, by the way, it was only in Persian. So this cashier had no idea what I was saying. But my grandma just ended up nodding her head and smiling every time the cashier said something bad about this game. And well, one thing led to another. I ended up getting a copy of Grand Theft Auto. Now, obviously, I got super happy about this and I was super excited. But this is where the story gets really intense. Because I remember that same day, I ended up going home and I ended up downloading the game. And right away at that moment, I ended up turning it on. And when I actually went into the game, one thing I started to realize was the loading screen had like this like girl on it. And then, well, one thing led to another. There was also a lot more other types of content in that game, which I'm going to say was definitely not for 14-year-old eyes. And well, of course, me being a 14-year-old that was hitting puberty, out of nowhere, one thing led to another. I got bricked. I got bricked to the point where I actually ended up going into the unicorn place. If you guys don't know what that is in GTA, then you should not be watching this video. But basically, it was a place in Grand Theft Auto where you could see inappropriate stuff. And I went in there and I ended up getting even more bricked to the point where I actually ended up taking off my pants and I started, I started beating my meat. It sounds really cringe, but honestly, it was just hormones. It's just all a part of growing up, I guess. But I remember as I was beating my meat, out of nowhere, my grandmother ends up coming downstairs to check on me. And she sees me without my pants on, bricked to a video game. And she looks at me and says, "Bubba, is this the game I bought you?" At that moment, I freaked out and put on my pants as fast as I could. And I ended up telling my grandma, no, it's not. It was just a website. I'm sorry. I just have a lot going on. I was super nervous and did not know what to say. But luckily, my grandma didn't know the difference between a computer and an Xbox, to the point where she kind of just ended up letting it go. But she did have a conversation with my parents later about how, you know, I'm growing up in a way. I don't know. It was the most awkward conversation in dinner ever. And to be honest, I lost my appetite that dinner time. But one thing was for sure, I was definitely super embarrassed about how my grandma caught me beating it to Grand Theft Auto. Like, who gets bricked over a video game? That is so weird. But at the same time, I can't be the only one, right? If you guys never got bricked during a video game, then just fall for more embarrassing stories just like this one. Peace out, guys.